Welcome to Action Hour. I'm Lindsay Baker, and today I have with me game changers and scholarship recipient, scholarship choosers. Oh my God, I'm flustered today. It's been a rough day today. But anyway, guys, I have with me Peter Walker and Dr. Sailesh Rao from Climate Healers. We are going to be talking about the amazing scholarship that Veg Voyages offers, and we're going to be talking about the winners, and we're also going to be talking about climate healers with Dr. Rouse. So thank you both for being here. Peter, do you want to announce the winners, first of all, of the scholarship, and then we'll get into what the whole thing is about?
Sure. So the 2023 recipients of the Veg Voyages Foundation 1101 scholarships are Anka Arora, who's 22, a law student in Delhi, and Sujita Basola, who's 21. She lives in Nepal and is aiming to study fashion to do eco-conscious fashion.
So, Dr. Rao and Peter, you were both on the panel to choose the winners. What was the criteria that you both used? What made you? What were the outstanding things that you saw in the winners? We'll start with Dr. Rao.
Well, thank you. I think there were about 13 essays that I read, and every one of them, you could see the passion in these applicants. And so basically I was looking for authenticity and passion and what they were going to use the money for. And I think both these recipients were among the top that I also rated. So I'm glad that they won.
Yeah. So you felt like your choices were along the lines. It was really difficult because there were so many of them that we would love to have given the scholarship to, but of course we could only choose two. And all of them had interesting and sometimes sad stories, but uplifting in the sense that they were all moving towards a more humanitarian lifestyle and veganism and striving to get education. Peter, you're a big donor to the scholarship fund, Veg Voyages Scholarship Fund. What makes you choose that charity among so many that we all know there are?
I've traveled a lot with Veg Voyages now, Vegan Travel Asia, and I've really seen how the leaders of that organization connect with the activists on the ground and the issues on the ground, and see the needs. So my feeling is that by donating to their foundation, I know that the money is going to be used really effectively and address important issues in local communities. And while the foundation has been around for a while, its recent expansion into doing these scholarships will really help to grow that, bring on the young people to help, carry out a lot of the good work that the foundation does.
Yes, and there is quite a bit of work that is that. I guess if you're not speaking, let's mute ourselves while we're not speaking. There's some strange. I really don't know what that is. Does anyone have any idea what that sound might be? Anyway, okay. So I'm going to show a video, a little bit about Veg Voyages. Let's start with that. And we'll later going to get into a countdown to year zero with Dr. Rao and also climate healers. So stay tuned, folks. Let's look at this first. So that was just a little example of some of the trips that you can take. And Peter, I know that you have taken several trips. Do you want to talk about a little bit like what your experience was? And then we'll get into a little more detail. We'll actually go to their website. So go ahead, if you would.
So on a Veg Voyages trip, I think what initially attracts people to those is that they're fully vegan trips. So you don't, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you don't have to worry about what are you going to eat. They provide amazing food, usually large buffets. You just never eat so well as if you travel with them. But then you also get to see the country, meet the people. Usually, as part of a tour, you'll have a dinner with other vegan activists. You'll stay in a community, and so as well as great food and seeing some of the normal tourist sites in the country, you really get a sense of what's going on locally and help contribute to important issues.
Well, could give us a little example or description, if you could, briefly, of what your trip was like, if you would.
So all the trips are a little different, but generally speaking, you're going to travel with like-minded people. I've traveled with anything from 3 other guests to about 15, a group of 15, 16. Some of the time you'll stay in what to me are luxurious accommodations, but then, I tend not to stay in high-end hotels normally, like boutique hotels that have nice rooms, good decorations, pools. Some of the time a night or two, you may stay in a homestay with a local family. You might stay in a more rural area in a more basic accommodation, like a cabin with a mosquito net.
Wow.
So it's a mix of accommodations, travel by van, by bus, by train, occasionally local flights if there's a long distance to cover, but all arranged for you and escorted. And if there are any issues, the tour leader is there to help out, and we'll make special arrangements.
Do you get to see, oh, excuse me for interrupting, do you get to see a lot of wild animals, or like we see here? I guess it depends on your trip, right?
Yeah, it does vary by trip, but most trips you will spend a day or more at an animal sanctuary, which vary from, for example, in northern India, in Udaipur, there's an animal rescue organization that has mainly domestic animals, but there are also, you know, opportunities to see wild animals in their natural settings in the national parks and so on.
That's amazing. I want to get to Dr. Rao now, but I do want to mention, and we will get back to Dr. Rao. I want to say something, first of all, on the subject of Veg Voyages before we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. See, to me, Veg Voyages is moving towards the kind of travel that we need to do in the future, where, it's not that we are going to stop traveling just because it's got all these carbon emissions that are associated with it, right? Because we travel for a reason. And if you're traveling for a reason, then you need to know how to travel properly, how to travel sustainably. And that's what Zach is trying to show, trying to do. And so this is why I support what they're doing. And because ultimately, when we go someplace, for instance, I travel to the Vegan Forest Festival. I came to India now to attend 3 vegan festivals. I'm giving speeches there. And now I'm traveling around to talk to universities and corporations about how to be sustainable. And so that requires travel. And I would love for Veg Voyages to have organized that, but now I'm doing it on my own. So that's what I see. The reason for having organizations like Veg Voyages to be around, because ultimately we're not going to stop traveling. We just have to travel responsibly.
That is such an important point, and thank you for making that point. Can we get a little bit of background for the people that don't know a lot about your work? You actually are one of the people that invented the internet, and you are the founder and executive director of climatehealers.org. And I would love to start off with the pinky swear, because I think that's the thing that touches people's heart and they can remember for sure. So would you just talk about that and then just go into whatever you'd like, and I'll jump in with questions as I see
Sure.
fit. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I didn't invent the internet. I mean, a lot of people have been given credit for that, including Vice President Al Gore. I did work on making the internet. I turned it from analog to digital. And so that and increased the speed tenfold. That was my contribution to the internet. And yeah, so the pinky promise, it's something that happened with my granddaughter, because I was explaining to her about evolution. And this was on the day that I had just read a report from the World Wildlife Fund saying that between 1970 and 2012, we wiped out 58% of all wild animals. And that was a shocker to me. That came out in 2016. And my granddaughter was about 5 years old at that time. So I calculated that if it was 52% in 2010 and 58% in 2012, even just a linear extrapolation will lead us to 100% by 2026. So they're dying at a very fast pace, the wild animals. And I know they're dying for several reasons. There are 6 planetary boundaries that humanity has violated. And each one of those planetary boundaries impacts wildlife. So whether it's freshwater use, so we're using way too much fresh water for ourselves and not leaving enough for wild animals. And so they're dying because of that. Land use, we're using way too much land for ourselves and not enough is left for wild animals. And they're dying because of that. Climate change is also killing wild animals because they cannot get up and move, or they don't have AC on. And so they die because of that. And then the fourth reason is nitrogen and phosphorus loading. I mean, that because of all our fertilizer that we use for growing crops, that goes and washes out into the ocean and it creates dead zones. And so all the fish die because they cannot breathe in the water. And then it's chemical pollution, and I mean, all the novel entities. So all our trash that we throw into the ocean, throw into the environment, it kills wild animals. The chemical pollution kills wild animals because they have no choice but to live with that, and it's there in the plants. So they eat the plants, and over time, the chemicals get loaded in their bodies, and they die from poisoning. So, and finally, we basically go and take away their habitats. We bottom trawl the ocean, and so that also kills wild animals. So this is why they're all dying at a very fast pace. And so I had just read that report, and I'm an engineer, and I look at numbers, and based on the numbers, I said we're going to get 100% by 2026 if we keep doing this. And that was a shocker to me. So then I was reading a story to my granddaughter in bed, and at the end of the story, she asked me who were the first human beings, and I was just trying to explain to her how evolution works. So I used the analogy of if you stand on the road and you hold your mama by your hand, you ask your mama to bring her mama to stand by her side, and so on. And so you create a long line of mothers on this side of the street, and you do the same thing with the chimpanzee on the other side of the street. The two lines will merge in about 150 kilometers. So that's the distance from Phoenix to Tucson. So I told her by the time these two lines go from Phoenix to Tucson, they will merge. And immediately she sat up in bed. She said, "What? Are you telling me that animals are my family?" And for her, it became visceral that wild animals are her family.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, now that you put it that way, they are your family. So immediately she started bawling. She said, why are people eating my family? Grandpa, make them stop. Make them stop. And I realized in trying to tell her the truth, I created a world full of monsters for my granddaughter. So I was trying to console her, and I said, "This is what I do, Kimaya. It's my job to make them stop." And she said, "This is your job. Then why don't you do your job?" So, so when will you do your job? And I blurted out, "I better do it by 2026, otherwise we're all in big trouble."
Oh dear.
And to me, that's how this pinky promise happened. She asked me to promise her that I will do my job by 2026. Then I realized this is a promise that I made on behalf of my generation to her generation.
Yeah.
That we will sort this out. We will stop this mess, and we will clean up the mess. And that's what I've been trying to go. I go to colleges, I go to corporations, and tell them, we are making this mess. Let's admit it. And it's us engineers who helped create all the processes that make this mess. So I feel a tremendous responsibility to first clean up our act on our processes, and secondly, clean up the mess that we already made. And so far, I've been getting really good reception in India.
Great.
Yeah. I wish it was, I got similar reception in the US also. But it's still slower. Yeah.
There was some people saying, or something going around, a lot of hubbub about India becoming one of the largest consumers of meat. And how is that is that one of the things that you're trying to educate people about, that Western living is perhaps not a good, that many people aspire to live the way Westerners live, but we're the ones that are causing most of the damage in the world. And so how are you counteracting that trend towards Westernization there?
Yeah, I've been talking about that a lot, because I point out to them that all 6 of these planetary boundary violations that I'm talking about, all 6 of them can be reversed if the world goes vegan. All of them can be reversed. So it's like is one simple act that we do that solves all our problems. Why wouldn't we do it? Especially in India, where vegan food is the foundation of the Indian culture. I mean, all of our base food is vegan in India. It's not like we've all grown up eating a slab of meat, in the center of our plate. We always grew up with a mound of rice in the center of our plate, right? And that's how I remember eating when I was growing up here. So anyway, it's easier for people in India to adopt it because it's literally going back to our roots.
Nice.
And secondly, India has gone through 150 years of colonialism, when there were, I think, 25 famines in India that literally killed about 100 million people. Okay. And because of those famines, Indians have been self-selected to be those who can store fat easily, because those who couldn't store fat died off. Okay, so we have been genetically selected to those who can store fat easily, and therefore Indians get diabetes at 4 times the rate as Europeans, or heart disease, double the rate, of 4 times the rate as Europeans. And so this is why it's important for Indians to eat right, to take care of our health. There's no point in sitting around blaming others, I mean, this is in our hands now. And why are we going after unhealthy food that's known to kill us? So that's also resonating very well in India, that message.
That's
because
wonderful.
because they see the diabetes now, they see the heart disease now. So it's happening much, much faster than
Yeah, it's interesting because they have the point before where that wasn't happening, to see when the diet changed, and now to go back to a healthier diet how that would change again. I want to bring Peter into the conversation a little bit more and ask him how, Peter, what was your vegan journey? How did you become vegan? And also, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what Dr. Rao was just talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah. So how did I become vegan? Well, I caught it from my children. Uh,
You caught it from your children.
yeah, my older daughter was vegetarian in college, and I sort of thought about what she was doing. It seemed like a good idea, so I decided to become vegetarian. And then I always sort of knew that I was still eating eggs and dairy, or always sort of knew that that was kind of unhealthy and had um, ethical issues, animal welfare issues as well. And I was staying with my younger daughter who was vegan, and so I was eating vegan with them. And I said, well, actually, really, this isn't that hard. So I went fully vegan after that, and now there's no going back. So I'm sorry. The other question was my thoughts on what Dr. Rao had to say. I think that's very interesting about, I think it was the 6 issues that all could be resolved by people going vegan. That's not really something I had heard or thought about before. I think that's a message that would be, it's good to get out there and expand awareness of. The other thing I want to mention in terms of India in particular, as I understand, one of the issues in India right now is that although cows are revered and supposed to be looked after, the dairy industry is aggressively trying to expand and increase dairy consumption in India, and that has a lot of ethical issues with how the animals are treated and what happens with the male calves and so on. And one of the things the Veg Voyages Foundation has done is help sponsor a film about that, which I think is now available on YouTube. I believe it's called Makadu, and that I think is getting some traction in India too.
Yes, I know of
Yeah.
Makadu. I interviewed the 2 film producers, writers, directors, etc., and it's a wonderful film. I did want to show when you meant we want to go back to Veg Voyages a little bit here. So let's show a little clip about the foundation, and then we'll bring the conversation back to that a little. Wow, that's exciting. Now, I remember when I first met Zach Loves, someone introduced me to Veg Voyages, Vegan Travel Asia. During COVID, they were actually going into communities and feeding all the street animals and the people and helping treat people with cancer. That was my intro. I would love to hear each of yours. I'll start with Dr. Rao, how you came to know and become involved with Veg Voyages.
Yeah, I interviewed Zach, and I had my own show, and I interviewed Zach once, and I was struck by what he was trying to do. And so this is how I got involved. And of course, I mean, I'm truly appreciative of the movie that he and Harsha put together, Maa Ka Doodh. It's also on Unchained TV, by the way, Maa Ka Doodh. You can find all these great movies on Unchained TV. And I've seen the impact of Maa Ka Doodh. One of the festivals that I went to in Ahmedabad, the Ahimsa Vegan Festival, they screened Maa Ka Doodh on the second day. And there were about 60 people who were watching who were not vegan. Okay. And another 20 who were vegan. So totally, it was almost packed, the room. And at the end of that, they asked, how many of you who are not vegan will go vegan now? I bet you that all 60 of them raised their hands. It's like, sea of hands went up.
Wow.
I mean, I was just amazed at how impactful that movie is. And so if you are talking to Indians, please have them watch Makadu. If you want for advocacy, it's the best movie.
That is such high praise. I love hearing that, and people can watch the movie. If they go to watch.unchainedtv.com, you can watch it for free. I'm so happy to hear that it has finally gotten on the network. Thank you for saying that. And go ahead. I wanted to go ahead, Peter, and ask you. Oops, we just lost Peter. I'm not sure. He'll probably come back in a moment. So let's talk, keep going. Dr. Rao, if you would talk to us a little bit about Climate Healers, your organization, and then the offshoots from that, et cetera. And may I play Cow in the Room? Maybe that would be great to start.
Sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
Let me just get that little clip. I love that clip. These are so creative.
Today on The Cow in the Kitchen, global food insecurity is on the menu.
You humans waste tons of food to feed animals, then you kill us for food. That's crazy.
So we're making Unity Stew, a nutritious, locally sourced plant-based meal. It's not just a dish, it's a food poverty solution. Nothing but seasonal vegetables go into mine. But you can use whatever's local in yours.
But not me.
Or me.
It's part of a message we delivered at COP26 about the need to end animal agriculture, a major cause of food poverty as well as climate change. This World Food Healers Day, we want everyone to enjoy a bowl of Unity Stew! Eat healthily, eat plant-based, heal the planet.
Wow. Can you just tell us a little bit how all that idea came about? The Cow in the Room. I know that you were at COP26, I believe. But anyway, tell us how that all came about, if you would.
Yeah. So for COP26, we introduced the Cow in the Room as a metaphor for what is happening at these climate change meetings, where everybody is talking about everything except the main problem, which is animal agriculture. And they're all eating meat and dairy and fish and eggs at the COP meetings. So serving animal foods at climate change meetings is like serving cigarettes at a lung cancer conference. And having all the people who attend lung cancer conferences being chain smokers. I mean, you cannot solve the problem with such people and such a meeting. Okay, so it's not set up right. So as an engineer, I don't like going to meetings where I'm wasting my time unnecessarily, because I like to solve problems. Okay, and to me, I'm not solving a problem when I'm talking to people who are missing the main fact, the cow in the room. So we created this character, and we created a short animation about why animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And why, and then asking people, why are they not talking about it? And of course, they didn't want us to bring the cow into the meeting. And they even tried to prevent us from flying the cow outside the meeting. And we had to go.
Let me interrupt you for a second so people know this is really a gigantic blown up giant cow, and you wanted to bring it into the Cow in the Room.
Right. Brilliant. I mean, they wouldn't want us to bring her in, but then they didn't want us to even fly her outside, And to me, it was like blatant suppression of freedom of speech. So we had to go find a private owner of a parking lot and fly the cow from there. I mean, she had to be that big because we had to size her so that when you put helium in her, she just barely floats. We don't want her flying off with someone hanging on to her, but at the same time, we also don't want her to be staying flat on the ground, right? So we had to size her like that. So she barely floats, and she does float. And so that's what we were showing in the movie. We had to fly her out of a private parking lot so the police cannot stop us.
That's so interesting. That's so incredible. You approach this problem from a systems engineer point of view. And I know you talked about it just a little bit, but could you just kind of go over again how people stopping eating meat completely, and even if they slow down, could you talk a little bit of the impact, why that's more impactful than fossil fuel, et cetera, the other aspects of climate destruction? Dr. Rao, are we frozen? Peter, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Dr. Rao is frozen. Maybe he can come back in, but why don't you comment on we've been listening to what he's had to say. He's brilliant observations and plans. It's so exciting. What, being a vegan yourself and supporting this sort of compassionate living, et cetera, and ecological responsibility, how do you feel about what he said? Talk a little bit about that.
I think it's great. It sounds like he has a really effective message and a very effective way of communicating it, and I would love to see that spread as widely as possible.
Yes. I think we should talk a little more about Veg Voyages now, and particularly about the fact that they've won awards for the way that they conduct their business. They've changed the lives of people that travel with them. And I think they've won the World Travel Awards, which are very, very prestigious awards, the Lux Awards. These are all big time travel industry awards that they have won. And like Dr. Rao was saying, it's so important. We can't stop traveling. We have to travel for business, and we have to travel to live our lives and enjoy our lives, because we have, that's what life's made living for, right? But this is just so important. So let's have your take on that. And then I'm glad to see Dr. Rao is back. So let's just have you give your take on that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the awards, all of which I feel are, extremely well deserved. And what's remarkable about Veg Voyages is they're a relatively small organization in the travel world. There's only a few principal people, and those principals are out on the road leading every trip. It's not a big organization that hires guides who just work for a salary. It's the owners of the company who lead every trip, and then pass on a significant proportion of the proceeds to the foundation. So there's this little company, and they're just doing an amazing job and beating out all the big companies in terms of what they deliver and how they deliver it.
Isn't that incredible? That David is slaying Goliath here because of ethics. And it's so good to see that, because of ethics and because of, all the other aspects, their dedication, their honesty, their integrity, but also their creativity in coming up with this concept. I know that it was founded by people in the film industry, and they just wanted a better way to travel themselves. And when they left the film industry, they decided, why don't we start a travel agency? And that's how it all started. So it's amazing what people can do when they put their mind to it. This is life-changing for those that go on the trips, but it's also for the people that you visit. Now, when you travel, did you feel like you're taking the trip contributed to others' well-being beyond the point of being, an ethical traveler? Did it make you feel like you were contributing to these people that you encountered or saw on your journey?
Yes, I think that's, that's one of the many great things about the trips is that in a lot of cases you're supporting local communities. So for example, you may visit a village that where people don't have a whole lot of sources of income, don't get many tourists, but Veg Voyages will arrange for them to say cater lunch for us, and so we get a great home cooked meal, and the people in the village get the money that otherwise, for providing that meal that otherwise might have gone, on a regular tour might have gone to some big corporate hotel or catering concern.
Yeah. And imagine if everybody was doing that. There's the film Makadu. And people, please, if you get a chance, go watch the film. It's on this network, the streaming network, Unchained TV. But imagine if everyone followed that. And I think that was one of Dr. Rao. I don't know if he's going to come back. He was having some difficulty. He's joining us from India, and we were having a little bit of difficulty with that. Maybe he mentioned in the private chat, it dropped. I'm back now, but then I guess he dropped again. Yeah, so that's too bad because I would have loved to hear more from him. Maybe he will come back in. We'll stay on a little bit longer. But I do want to mention the food healers. If he doesn't return, I think it's really important that people know about this proposal and this project that he has going, where volunteers go to different parts of the country. It happens here in LA and Venice. And they serve free food to people and try to show them, a better way of eating, a better way to be more healthful. And for some people, that's a meal that they're looking forward to. And I would love to have heard Dr. Rao speak about it, but he says that he wants to start this initiating of love all, feed all, so that we realize that we are responsible for each other and we can make a difference. So did you want to comment on anything about that, or anything that you, for either from Dr. Rao's work or from the work of Veg Voyages, that really inspires you? And I guess we'll start wrapping it up if he doesn't show up soon. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think mainly from the perspective of Veg Voyages, that having traveled with them on quite a few trips, as far as the trips are concerned, there are two types of people on those trips. There are the people who have been on trips before and intend to keep going on trips, and there are people for whom it's their first trip with them who say, I am coming back. I have never traveled with anyone who said, I'll never do this again.
Wow.
So warned, if you're thinking of traveling with Veg Voyages, it's addictive. But at the same time, through the way they set up the tours and through the foundation, they're really supporting the important issues in the world today, like the ones that Dr. Rao is also working on, and supporting local communities. So, I can't speak more highly of it. And, by going on a trip, you're supporting the foundation. You also have the opportunity, if you wish, to donate directly to their foundation and see more about the foundation's work on their website. If you're in the US and qualify for charitable deductions or have matching from an employer or so on, it's a great way to make effective use of any money you can afford to send towards a charitable organization.
I think it's an extremely incredible organization. We need more organizations like this. And by supporting them, we're helping them get the word out and to more people and inspiring more people with their work. I want to thank you, Peter, for being on today. Is there anything else that you might like to add before we wrap things up here?
Well, just coming back to where we started, I'd like to congratulate the 1101 scholarship winners and thank all of the 13 people who applied. It was very hard, as you know, Lindsay, to choose between them, and hopefully even those who didn't receive the scholarship will have been inspired by the application process to continue the great work they're doing.
Yes, I'm hoping that too. And maybe as the scholarship continues, maybe they can apply again. I don't know I don't know the rules about that, but I'm just showing some of the pictures. These are people from, I believe, the last 2022 scholarship, correct?
Yeah, I believe that's
Yeah.
that Eva, who was one of the 2022 winners.
And Rakshith and also and did a lot of great work educating people, outreach. You can see an outreach here. We have him doing outreach, and that really takes the grassroots approach, as well as well, it takes all of us. It takes a village to change the world. I know it sounds corny, but it's true, and we can. And the thing that I just want to leave with today is we hear so much in our news, so much bad news, so much fear mongering, so much negativity, killing, that we tend to forget all the good that's going on in the world and how much good we can do even for our kitties and friends that are here with us. So on that note, John Henry is agreeing with me here, and I'm going to sign off. Thank you, Peter, for being on. We will be doing another show, just by the way, hopefully with Dr. Rao, and also a show with the scholarship recipients. And Peter, I'm going to ask you to come back for that if you can. So I hope to see you again soon. And thank you, folks, for watching.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You can stay on, Peter, for a sec.